Okay, it's 6 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting to order, and the first order of business is Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Not on the agenda. We just want to thank Pete Kalinda. I don't know if some of you guys didn't attend his retirement party, but his last day was officially yesterday.
Yep.
We want to thank him for all his service and years of hard work. Consider of any changes, additions, and removals to the agenda.
No, sir.
Okay, approved minutes of previous meeting, June 3rd and June 17th.
Approve them as written.
Second.
Second. Open for discussion. Being no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Guys opposed? Guys have it. Comments from citizens. Okay, department head reports. Everybody has them. Is there any questions on them?
None.
Do we have the available at meeting reports, Mr. McNamara?
Excuse me?
Department head item 7 and 10 says available at meeting. Do you guys have those in your packets? I didn't have those.
I do have the transfer station reports, which I will pass to you. Apologies.
No planning and zoning?
Not with me. I can get them to you.
I would love that.
Yeah.
That's a busy
So,
department.
Yeah, we didn't, at the time of printing, we did not have them.
Thank you, sir. Extra. I just had a quick question. This just pertains to the transfer station. How are we looking on getting restrooms up there?
Good.
Great.
We received the engineering report, so that was the big step in just getting that facilitated, so construction to begin shortly.
Thank you for staying on that.
Anything else from anybody? Okay, moving on. Discussion regarding the Class 4 portion of Freedom Hill as pertains to ownership and use.
This was, we had this discussion at our last meeting in June regarding concerns of the section of Freedom Hill that connects Freedom Hill South and Freedom Hill North, which are two Class 3 roads. Freedom Hill, the section we are talking about, is a Class 4. There was concern over the use of ATVs on that road and damage that was doing to the road, et cetera. As we said, that per our statutes and per the state of Vermont, Class 4 roads, ATV use is permissible to any registered vehicle. Ludlow is not a town where it's allowed on any other roads, just Class 4s. After our discussion on the 3rd, we talked about having, investigating this a little bit further, and we did look at, the board was shared what the VLCT shares as a model Class 4 road policy, which is what some towns have, which gives the town a little more authority over their Class 4 roads. They can do anything from weight limits to governing what type of vehicles, what time of the year it's used, et cetera. So I did share that with everyone, so people had a chance to look at that. That is one option. One option is to not do anything. The other option is you could reclassify the road. You could reclassify it to a trail. So from a Class 4 to a trail. I did speak with VTrans about that. That is an option, which would be specific to this section of road. Again, of trail in Vermont is basically a right of way. The town wouldn't be giving up ownership, but would be giving up any form of maintenance. So for example, class 4 roads in the summer are maintained to an extent. You know, they're not something that we keep up on, but they are maintained to a certain extent. If it is a trail, maintenance is gone. That includes any bridges, culverts, et cetera, that are on it. That would not allow ATVs on it, which seems to be the big part of this discussion. And so whatever the board, there are pros and cons to both of those. A policy really dictates all of our class 4 roads. Town of Ludlow does not have that many class 4 roads. Reclassifying from a class 4 to a trail is an easy option, which immediately drops it down. At no point, I just want to, we can't gate the road. You can put up, it's also commonly referred to a pent road. Sometimes you hear that, which is basically a road that is closed off. The gate must be unlocked. You must or there can be some sort of barrier there. The one thing we would have to be aware of is obviously if there was an injury at some point on these trails, you don't want to prohibit any EMS services getting there. So whatever, open for discussion, both options are viable. And it really, the thing that came up and just in all, transparency about it, that it really comes down to enforcement. That's really the bottom line is, with no gate, whether it's a class 4, you could go say it's a class 4 road. You could put a policy in place and say, great, it's a class 4 road, but we're not going to allow ATVs on it. You still have to enforce that. You have a trail that it is a trail. You could put a gate there that you still have to enforce that if there are violations. I think the violations are up to not exceed $50 per state statute.
Here's a question for you. If we decide to go the route of turning it into a trail, are we allowed to put boulders blocking large vehicles from entering and exiting the trail?
I think there's that would be something like that, or bollards or something like that. I believe I'd want to dive a little bit. It doesn't necessarily say that you can't, but also you can't have a locked gate. My concern with boulders or things that still would be impeding emergency services from a town property.
How would an EMS service get to a normal trail, say the back 40?
A lot of times it would be either by ATV or you're going to have to park and hike in. So it's not in
How
situation
long's
here.
the parcel
It's
that we're
not.
talking
This
about?
isn't. The parcel we're talking about is not that big.
Quarter mile?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Well, ultimately, it still needs to be accessible to snowmobile trails for the Bass Trail,
Not that section.
not that section.
So if we chose to downclass the road,
Reclassify.
reclassify the road, does that prohibit us from in the future, looking for 50 years down the road, right?
Yeah.
Would that prevent us from re-bringing it back to class 4 road if that a need? Okay. So we're not really giving anything away at all. Okay.
No.
Just the short term.
Yep.
Okay.
I think that, to be perfectly honest with you, if this is the route we're going to go, and this is, and we've talked about that for this road, it's not necessarily the problem. Part of the problem is that it's surrounded by class 3 roads too. So, which is a concern. So the easiest, quickest, most effective method, without going through a policy, et cetera, would be to reclassify the road. And it's not really going to change anything town-wise.
How many parcels does this affect up through there, though? I mean,
You mean on that section
right,
of
so
road?
if somebody wants to have, all of a sudden decides they want to build, we're shutting this road down to a
I
trail.
think even at that point, on a class 4,
Yeah.
they'd have to petition to reclassify it to a 3 anyways, because they'd have to bring it to town specs.
Right.
So regardless of how you were classifying it, I don't think I know what you're saying, but I think that at this point, even if you went to a trail, all it really does is, give the town a little leeway over that. But if they were going to someone were to build there, subdivide, et cetera, and say, now we want to, they'd have to petition that. We'd have to reclassify it, have to go back up. So you'd have to do that anyways. And you'd be going from a trail to a 3, rather than from a 4 to a 3.
Mr. McNamara, who would craft the Class 4 policy if we were to move in that direction?
That would probably be done in accordance with myself. Regional planning, I talked with Jason Rasmussen about helping with us, and also it would go through legal.
Is there any comments from the citizens?
Any comments from citizens on this?
How many class 4 runs do we have? What is the overall impact on what's being discussed?
I believe we only have about, in mileage, very limited. It's under 5 miles of class 4 roads.
And my second question is, does fire and rescue have a view on this change in terms of their access for class 4 runs?
That would be, we have not necessarily weighed in with them at this point. I think once we go to, both of these processes have public hearings that have to be associated with them, whether you reclassify or institute a policy. At that point, they would be brought in as well.
And then do we not want ATV recreation in is that what it's doing?
Well, I believe part of the, so Ludlow, as we said, does not allow ATVs on a class 3 road, which,
Do you want the limit,
well, class 4 roads, is not per se that Ludlow does, but by state statute, they do. Part of the catch-22, as they say with this road, is that you have to ride on a class 3 to get to it, unless you trailer there. And it's only a very short stretch of road. So it's not as though it's a recreation destination, let's put it that way.
what's the situation with the rest of our class 4s?
And there have been, I've had zero discussions on ATVs on the other class 4 roads.
I would imagine if it's such a low amount, it's probably the same. We have under 5 miles of class 4s.
Yeah, it's very limited. This isn't, we don't have miles upon miles of trails.
Yes, the select board is, I guess, tonight going to decide whether or not we'd like to craft policies for Class 4 roads as an entirety, reclassify this certain section, or table it.
Well, I think Colchester has a model ordinance.
That's great information.
Doing that selection.
Thank you.
So just Brendan, when it comes to class 4 road ordinances, those are out, we can specify for different roads might have different rules. et cetera.
Correct.
Okay.
Some roads, you may allow all-terrain vehicles, I'm going to say year-round, but obviously not during the winter, but year-round. Some you may allow not at all. Some you may allow when it is not mud season. So there's different specs to that.
Okay. What's the time frame for the choices we have? I know you said we had to have public hearings no matter
Yeah,
what.
they're usually, if we were to move on it, you're talking probably the end of the summer.
Okay.
Just, for anything.
For anything.
Because it's going to take, has to be warned, there's hearings, then the board would vote. So it's just like any ordinance and or
Okay.
policy.
Do we have any culverts on that section?
Not that I'm aware of. We could look, but
If
I'm
we
not.
changed it to a trail and
Yeah,
didn't maintain it,
There's
wouldn't,
not that I'm aware of, nothing major. Where I talked with Highway and there was nothing when they said, holy cow, we have this huge structure on that road.
Not to bring up a sore subject, but we don't really enforce class 3 riding.
Well, again, that's kind of what
We're
it,
gonna close this road down. Shouldn't we look at that too? The whole purpose of this road being shut down is because you have a class 3 on either side of it.
as, I think we talked about it at the last meeting. Enforcement is difficult.
It's very difficult.
Yeah, so that's really, and, I had a conversation with the district advisor for V-Trans and asked him, what would you do? And he said the same thing. He goes, regardless of what you do, right, he goes, you still have an enforcement problem. So and that then falls to the town. So no matter what we do, it's not, I don't want to just, in all transparency, it's not a magic fix. Whether you reclassify it or there's still you would hope that we say, hey, great, this isn't allowed and it doesn't happen. But people may not know, et cetera. Then so there, it becomes an enforcement thing. That's really what it boils down to.
Well, the boulders would.
And if you were able to do that, yes.
Or
that'd be good.
bollards.
Yes, absolutely.
Before we do this, I'd like to see a map of all the, what'd you say, 5 miles of class 4? I'd like to know exactly where they are and how they're also affected.
So you're looking for a general consensus, Mr.
I would just
McNamara?
like to know, I mean, it seems as though we're going to look at one or the other and or both. If you would like me to proceed with presenting both, I'm fine with that. If you would like me to draft the policy and draft what it would look like to warn reclassification, I'm fine with that. I just would like some direction and consensus on what you want me to do. It's not a heck of a lot of, it's not, the work isn't time consuming. It's just state statute requires certain guidelines. So that makes it, that's the time consuming part. It's nothing on behalf of the town. I just want them.
I mean, I would table it till I have that map on the other class 4 roads.
It's feeling of the board. Oh.
Steve, can I ask a question about I guess the enforcement aspect? So if you had adopt a policy or let the alternative route of declassify the road to a trail, would that mean would there be any, I guess, additional signage?
So
along with that?
that's a very, yeah. So by statute, the town is allowed to do, per the statute, what it is within it, basically, layman's terms, within its legal obligation to do to protect the road. So if there was, putting like a bollard up, if there was signage, that would be within the purview of the town. So if you were to reclassify it or put a policy in place, either way, yes, you could erect a sign that says, this section of Freedom Hill is closed to X, Y, and Z. These are the guidelines subject to penalty of X, Y, and Z.
I guess you mentioned the gate, so you said there can't be a gate there or can't be locked. Well, I don't know what to go with. I think there's still a gate on top of it. Freedom Hill Road.
But should be opened, just absolutely.
I'm not arguing to open it.
Yeah, I think so.
And then I guess someone raised the question of access for fire and rescue. For that section of that section of the road is accessible from the top as well.
Mhm. Sure. So, and that would be something that would be, if you were to do that, part of those hearings would be discussions with fire and rescue, say this is same thing that we kind of did with, went with both of the chiefs for the mountain bike trails and said it has to be the town. This isn't as detailed, but hey, if we're going to do this, this is what's going to have to be.
Yeah, I guess I would say, or offer up, there was some point where you needed access, didn't have access, happy to allow the town to have access to it in an emergency, so that for our field. Not for anybody, but.
Sure.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, one other question. So what you're talking about there is maybe not all the class 4 roads in town, just this section of class 4 roads.
What essentially a policy would do would allow it to cover all the class 4 roads. And then you could, not saying that when you enact it, it would put that in effect on every one of them, but you are allowed to choose regarding the condition situation. That's what that policy does, because you have the state statute, then you have the town that kind of can, you can't have less than the state statute, but the towns can supersede them sometimes and have stricter policies, so that's what this would be.
Yes, so does that mean if you did a policy, you could have a policy that applied to this portion of this road only?
Correct. Yep.
Justin?
I think my opinion of it is we should take these on a case-by-case basis and maybe not draft a whole policy for the 5 miles of class 4 roads. I don't think that this situation necessarily is a class 4 road issue. I think it's a specific piece of land issue. So my feeling would be to explore reclassifying this stretch.
So Brendan, when it comes to like policy, let's just say general class 4 road policies, what, once a policy is adopted, do you have to go through the whole hearing process for us to change policies for the road? Or would it allow us to change policies per road at a rapider pace?
Yes.
If problems
Yeah, so that-
arose in the future?
This, I believe, the policy that is in place, and it can be crafted that way, that once the policy is in place, it could be changed by a majority vote of the select board at a public meeting.
So that in
So-
theoretical theory, that if a problem did occur on a class 4 road, we would have a much more rapid
You
response.
could warn it at a monthly meeting, a special meeting if it was that dire.
Okay.
So,
Okay. I mean, that, in my opinion, that's my main reason for considering, really looking at the policy way, is it's going to give us if a problem arises in the future, we'd have a rapider response versus then having to do another potential state statute required hearing. Even if our class 4 policy for other class 4 roads states the same as the state currently states. And maybe it's also a good time for, as Mr. Bates pointed out, for us to look at that map and say, hey, maybe there's some considerations, particularly for fire and EMS, that we haven't, we only have 5 miles. That kind of sits at the bottom of our probably pool of thoughts most of the time.
I would have to see a map before I make a decision.
I guess we'll table it until we see the map and
do you want me to
Move forward.
present that? And
We'll present
what I will do is I would, with the consensus of the board, if you mind, I'll provide the map. I'll get that to you. I would like to work on both things, so I have them ready.
Absolutely.
I'll draft the policy.
Yeah.
I will also work on the reclassification, so that way we're not really losing any steps. I'll have the map, I can present it. But then, once we look at it, we're not gonna table it.
Make a choice.
So we can make a choice. I'll just have everything ready and we can pick A or B.
yeah.
I do want to be, just so I understand, if we go the reclassification of a class 4 road, this road remains open, not locked with gate, no bollard posts, no nothing. It's an open, accessible
It
road.
would be if we reclassify, it would be a trail, which is.
I'm sorry, if we
But if you use
reclassify
the
it to be a trail.
if you reclassify to a trail, it is essentially a trail. There's no maintenance really done. We could look at putting rock or a bollard there or a gate that is unlocked. The gate, it can be a gate, it just can't be locked.
I guess if we get the map and we explore crafting a class 4 road policy,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't solve this issue because this issue is an enforcement issue with class 4 roads. So
Essentially,
If
yes.
that-
Yeah. So it's kind of, they both have their pros and their cons, because you could still put a policy in place saying no ATVs, and you still have to be able to properly enforce that.
yeah.
So,
But we have had numerous people, neighbors, people even from out of state that hype on this, and we want to maintain that. And we don't want to see it being turned on. I use some ATV, it's a quarter mile, it's not, there's not much to do.
Okay.
Thank you.
so I'll prepare both those. I'll get a map that's very laid out, just so we can make we're kind of still moving forward if we're all right at that.
Okay, moving on. ARPA funding allocations.
Since our last meeting, we had 2 requests for ARPA funding allocation requests. You have those in front of you. One is from Patrick Cody at Okemo Valley TV, and the other is on behalf of the Black River Academy Museum. And those were submitted by Patrick Cody at the museum and Georgia Durham, director of Black River.
Are your ARPA projected allocations still accurate, Mr. McNamara?
They
you
are.
sent us last month?
To the extent that in I guess a positive, and I'll touch on it a little bit later, we have acquired some funding for another project that doesn't require ARPA funds. So 45,000 is back in that ARPA pool.
Off the dog park?
Yes.
So the dog park's going to get funded
Correct.
elsewhere.
Yeah.
So that puts us up to 177, more or less. Okay.
Brett, I think Jim, Alex here to
Oh,
talk
go ahead.
about the Okemo Valley TV.
Volunteer if anybody has questions about the low power, FM radio.
We get you
I'd
come
be
up.
glad to answer. I'm on the advisory committee
Okay.
that Patrick's letter mentions. And it's $20,000 that we're asking for. It is essentially all that is, other than a lot of work, that is required technically to put the station up.
Okay.
It'll still take us 2 or 3 years probably to get ready to do it. But allocating the money now, and then we can go ahead and start the real work.
Okay. Questions from anybody?
So, when does the money have to be spent by, Brendan, after we allocate it?
After we allocate it, it needs to be spent by December 31st, 2026.
Okay, and so you said multiple years, so
Yeah.
that's my only concern. So
I think
is that
we can-
within your time frame to be able to?
Yeah, I think it is. And
Okay.
certainly in terms of acquiring the assets, maybe not installing the antenna, because that'll be the trickiest one, is to decide on location.
Yeah.
And to actually hire an organization to put it up for us. But certainly we could acquire the antenna.
Mr. Alec, thank you for joining us. Couple questions. 20,000 is one of the larger asks that we've received
Yep.
for the ARPA funds. I'm curious as to, we have $1,500 for a desktop computer with automation software, and then a $2,000 laptop computer with audio mixing and editing software. Are these both for the emergency alert system, or are they to modernize the production currently?
They're really for the production
And there is. no
and the emergency
production
alert, but
Currently.
There's no
So
production at
this is for a radio broadcasting separate.
This is
from-
not for current operations.
this is not for the
TV
current
station.
operation of
okay.
TV at all. That's correct.
Okay.
We obviously expect to physically locate the station at Okemo Valley TV, and there's much synergy between the two organizations going forward, and including some of the technology, such as laptops and some of the staff, but not, the idea of having an advisory committee is so that Patrick doesn't take his eye off the ball of Okemo Valley TV.
Okay. What's the feeling of the board?
I think we have a good working relationship. We rely on these guys to do a lot of service for the town. And I think upgrading them and making emergency alert systems wise for us here in the valley. So I'd be in favor of adding this.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that recommendation.
Open for discussion.
Well, was that an actual motion that you made?
It was not. It was just a statement.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry.
But it was so good, people were seconding it. So.
So, yeah, I'll make a motion that we allocate $20,000 for the radio station.
Sorry. Do we have a second?
Second.
Open for discussion. Being no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Guys opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. McNamara, on the second one, the Black River Academy Museum. Do you know what our budget item is for these guys per year? Off the top of your head?
Not off the top of my head. I'd
You
have to
mentioned
look.
25,000.
I thought it mentioned some of
What
that.
the, I know there's, I think it's in here that it was what our appropriation is.
Our current level of funding is 25?
25,000.
Each year.
Okay.
This paragraph. So it would be.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so we allocate 25,000, so they're looking at an increase on top of that.
And this is a
How much are
one-time
they
request?
looking for, Brendan?
It's not specified.
It's best.
We didn't.
10,000.
10, but they're open to more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 10,000 is a one-time ask.
Correct.
I think that this is one of those rare circumstances where we have a president of the United States that went to high school here. That's a great museum that we have a lot of history and regard for in this community. So I would be open and I would make a motion to approve the 10,000 request for the Black River Academy Museum.
Who second that? I'll second.
Open for discussion. Being no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Guys opposed? Guys have it. Moving on, select board to consider waiving penalty on homestead tax.
So this is something that the town has historically done in the past. Last year we did it, just waiving the penalty on people filing their homestead tax. Last year, the total penalty cost was $3,200. Currently, it's $3,200.
Again,
$3,243.46. And this is something that has been a practice of the town.
This was a COVID era practice, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember doing
I'm not
this
sure
prior
how
to
long
that.
it dated back.
no, it was
Mr. Schmidt?
before. No, it was
Well,
before.
it's something, it's when the homestead's been on for a while and they changed the education.
Oh, because the education tax lags?
Yeah, and it can be kind of confusing.
At certain income levels.
Yep.
Okay. I'd be in favor.
It's been going on for a while.
Be in favor of recommending that then. I'll make a motion to waive penalties on homestead tax.
I'll second that.
Second. Open for discussion. Being no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Guys opposed? Ayes have it. Select board review, consider setting FY '25 tax rate.
So, as I mentioned before the meeting a little bit to Brett, that we had hoped to be able to set the tax rate today. Unfortunately, we have not received the education rate from the state, so we're unable to set that. You have in your packet, so the last year's tax rate was 0.3229. This year, the municipal tax rate is, indicated tax rate is 0.3169, so down a little bit. So we have to wait before we can get the education rate. So what that will look like is as soon as we have it, we can set it that way. We're able to send out tax bills. Probably looking at calling a special meeting as soon as we get it. We don't really know when we're going to get it. So
Sharon's gonna submit them on July 5th.
Yeah.
States that you can pick up in 2 weeks.
So realistically, it'll be the middle of July. We'll need to call a special meeting, which we will warn pending, well, God willing, I will be on vacation. So I'll be on the Cape. I will Zoom into that meeting. Once we schedule, I'll have it warned from the office and we can set the tax rate.
So the homestead education rate and the non-homestead education rate is set by the state,
Yes.
and each town has a different rate. I noticed some towns have higher non-homestead, some towns have higher homestead. That is all actuated up at the state level.
Yep.
Is our tax rate anticipated to go up or down versus what the state comes with?
The education. So
No,
our
just like
municipal, our municipal rate went down.
Yeah. Will that stay regardless?
Yeah,
of
our tax rate will, unless there was, in the past, at some practices, the town has opted to use some of it, whether we have a surplus to offset that and offset the tax rate by a little bit, depending on what our fund balance looks like. Unfortunately, this year, we don't really have that option because of how much we spent on the flood. And we're still awaiting, we have 1.57 pending, 1.57 million dollars pending from FEMA with still more to come. So we're running tight right now. So, and that's just the circumstances of money that we had to shell out. Overall, our municipal budget and our operating budget was very good, as it usually is in this town. flood did some damage.
So what you're looking
We're
for
coming up on a
from
year,
us?
Brendan. Is there we're coming up on a year now. Is there
Yeah.
any indication of getting that?
It's a struggle. I mean, I've said this before, and not to beat it, we're on our 6th project development manager. We've had a project that is our project on Smokeshear Road, which is approximately $531,000, has been kicked back 3 times for different information from 3 different people. When they bring in a new one, the other one kicks it back. For specifics as to how much rock versus dirt versus top dressing did you put on the road? I'm sorry, it's absurd. And I'm with Senator Welch is in town tomorrow. I'm going to speak with him. The damage that, I'm sorry, FEMA, and this is upsetting to me, the damage that dealing with FEMA has done to this community in terms of the funding is horrific. And that's not even, that's black and white. We sit here and we've done our best to battle through this. In 2 days, $0 from FEMA. Nothing. And it's not for the lack of trying. I'll tell you that. It is not. We have spent more time in submitting, working on documents, spending. Ron Tarbell and I went around for the 3rd time to get GPS locations. Spent 2 days getting GPS for things that should have been done. Well, this person, that's not the way we do it. It's almost criminal. I'm sorry. So that's my soapbox for tonight.
Hey, don't be sorry.
No, it's just,
You're absolutely right.
to know that we have to, this town went through so much with the flood and what it did, then to have to, worry about, well, we can't even, help our people out if we wanted to by offsetting the tax rate because we're out $2.5 million because we can't get that money, like you said, a year after the fact. It's upsetting at best. And we're working on it. Again, it's not for lack of trying. And, ULA in the office, they have done wonders being able to manage the funds and spending and getting contractors and bills paid. I can't even express what they do there. It's amazing. So hopefully it's going to get better because we're going to get money, but it's a difficult pill to swallow right now.
Logan?
Yeah, I have just 2 questions. I was just in that kind of line of thinking, Brandon, I'm wondering if I have some thoughts just from my new map I'm wearing at Mark. I want to try to work with Ron a little bit more on just like what we can do after action to kind of prepare us better, assuming this is going to happen again. We all know this. We all know that we're might be staring down the barrel of it right now. With this, quote unquote, worst hurricane season ever, whatever they say. So just like, what are we doing to make sure we're better prepared? I think there are some thoughts that I've gathered from other towns that I want to kind of talk about, trying to put in place for Ludlow. I'm also just on the general budget thing. I'm wondering if you know, maybe Hula knows better, if you've received in the budget adjustment, like way back in March, we had put in this like 800,000.
We got 826,000. Yeah. We did that with us, Hardwick Johnson, and I believe Barry Montpelier. We got that, was that a month ago, maybe or so, around there? Yeah, 2 months. So we did receive that, I think. But to your point, Logan, so we have, unfortunately with some of these things, tremendous learning comes. We have one of, I think we've talked about that we were fortunate enough to come in contact with a woman that was recommended by Mount Scottney Regional Planning, Kelly Murphy, who is basically a consultant that is handling our liaison work with FEMA, getting documents together, et cetera. One thing she has done that will come out of this is documents that say, when this happens, you can hand it to a contractor, hand it to your highway department and say, this is what, well, until it changes, but this is what you have to keep track of for FEMA. These are all the points, so then we can put that into the invoices. So I think kind of to prepare yourself because, you know, when it happened, if this detail and this depth of information, like, we have thousands and thousands of pictures. If that detail was going to be required, FEMA should have been here July 12th, not August 12th. You know, that's the bottom line. So, you know, if they want us to know that we had to put things back together just to get people home, you know, so we couldn't wait and say, well, you know, that looks like 1.5 feet of top dressing. I don't know, Ron, what do you think? That's just not the way this was going to work. So it's tedious, but I'll digress.
Are you looking for a motion to set this tax rate?
No,
No,
because we
we
can't, we don't have the
Can't set it.
information. So.
Oh, we can't set the
Yeah,
indicator.
so I'll call in another meeting.
So, moving on to number 10, discussion of change of procedures to municipal public body meetings.
So this document was included in your packet. Really came up, was, you know, a discussion. We all know that in, you know, public meetings, for the most part, Robert's rules govern those meetings and they can be a little cumbersome. And, you know, unless you know Robert's rules inside and out, it can be difficult to contain a meeting, really hold the meeting to specific open meeting laws. So this was I believe Justin went to, it was a meeting with VLCT that recommended these are some changes that you could put in place to streamline some of your meeting procedures. At this point, I'll defer to Justin to kind of give a little presentation on what this is.
Thanks, Mr. McNamara. As you folks are aware, we adopt rules of procedure for these open meetings. Most of the time we do Robert's Rules of Order because that has traditionally been the yardstick, the meter. That book is about 600 pages long and gets into all different sorts of nuances and how you're supposed to govern the meetings, how you're supposed to recognize what motions you can make, how you're supposed to speak, be called on. All those things are great in larger format governments, maybe more larger cities, larger city councils, more representative boards. So upon my meeting with VLCT about a month ago, we were going over the rules of order for municipal governing boards, and they said it was crazy to have Robert's Rules of Order in small town governments like us. And I asked, well, what's better? And they said, well, we've crafted our own rules for municipal public bodies that are pretty straightforward, adhere to all the state statutes, and are a little bit more free-flowing for smaller meetings such as we. So I'm just going to read a little bit of this paragraph that I sent you, select board members. It says, while these model rules do not closely adhere to Robert's Rules of Order, they do recognize its utility by incorporating the more familiar and easier to follow elements that we believe best enable public bodies to conduct their business in an orderly fashion. They've also built some flexibility into these rules to allow members to make any type of motion, for example, motion to amend, table, reconsider, object to consideration of the question, etc. So I wanted to bring these to you guys and potentially point out a few things that I think we could benefit from, such as, you know, you can add a couple things. Let's see if I can get to the proper page. Looking for an optional add. This is all pretty boilerplate, all these sections and agenda items. There are some called optional in bold that I'll look for and we can discuss real quick. On page 6, item 14, an optional add is the collective silent acquiescence of the body in response to a motion will signify its unanimous consent. Obviously, those are things that we can decide to add or not add. I just want to present this document to you guys because I feel like our meetings could be better run and a little bit more succinctly managed by adopting kind of more streamlined rules, which is why I wanted to include it in our packets for you guys to look over.
Does it change anything with warning meetings or anything like that?
It does not, because this is in response to Vermont state statutes. So you have to do a minimum and a maximum of those. And Noah, if you want to go to page 4 under section 1 at the top of the page, all requests for additional agenda items must be provided at least 60 hours, at most 72 hours in advance of a regular meeting, and at minimum 36, at most 48 hours in advance of a special meeting to be considered. So there are certain rules that, transcend everything because they're Vermont state statute. So this is more of a streamlined, what we have to do, what we should do, and then what we could do. And I implore us all to look this over and maybe talk about it or discuss it at a future meeting, but I want to put your eyes on it.
I definitely would say that it's worthy of a consideration. As someone who's attempted to read the entire Robert's Rule of Order book, that is a daunting document to try to read. I mean, and we're looking at 9 pages here. I mean,
Yeah.
and for someone who wanted to come to the meeting, right, who's never read Robert's Rules of Order, I think this might make it more understandable to somebody. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely worthy to try to figure out what some of, I mean, there's a lot of choices in here, right? This isn't a document that we can just sign
No.
in its current form.
Yeah,
as
so
presented, right?
we'd have to, bring the presentation, which we're doing tonight, to the board. How you would adopt these rules are administrative in nature rather than regulatory, which means they're relatively simple to adopt. Generally, all that is required for adoption is a majority vote by the public body at a duly warned public meeting. And then the rules can take effect as soon as they are adopted. Most of the items in this document are non-negotiable. They're written by the lawyers, vetted and tested, and they stand up to the statutes. Where it's listed optional is where we can decide whether or not we want to include those types of meeting requirements into this document. This would have to be readopted every year, much like the Robert's Rules of Order, however, less structured, while still maintaining all of our statutes. So something to think about as a board.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thanks,
you.
Justin. Okay, moving on, dam rehab and spillway repair project update.
Just a brief, quick update. As we've explained in the past, dams have kind of in 2 situations here. Have the main rehab and overhaul of all 5 of the dams, which is ongoing. Had a productive meeting last week with the USDA, so that is still in motion, looking for funding options. Second is the EWP, which is the Emergency Watershed Program, which is regarding the repair of the spillways on dams 3 and 5. That is all ready to go. The only thing we're waiting on is the USDA and the federal government to give us the okay from the Agency of Cultural Resources. Should be any day. That will be the clear for construction on that. So in a good spot.
Thank you.
Are they handling putting that out to bid, or do we have
Yes.
to put that out? Okay, so we're basically more or less hands off, and it's at no cost.
Correct.
Okay.
Engineering, construction, completely funded.
Okay.
It's
Thank
part
you.
of the reason why it took a little bit longer is because once they took over, that was kind of the part of, we were either going to get all of the 170 or 750,000 covered, or we were going to have to take 25%. So I think it was better to kind of give them the reins for this. And I will say, I know we've talked about, as part of the overall dam rehab, so the big picture rehabbing, constructing all the dams, we had a meeting just the other day with one of the engineers that has been on site, has visited, and was very positive regarding the current condition of the dams. So I just want to say that publicly. It was reassuring to know what his thoughts were regarding the safety of the dams. So that was a positive that came out of the meeting on Thursday.
Okay. Moving on, tree warden update. Phil.
You don't have to make any decisions. You don't even have to think. I'm just going to tell you some stuff about the tree warden program that has come to my attention that I had never had any idea. I always kind of put it in the same category as fence viewer and weigher of coal. I've made appointments when I sat on your board thinking that, but I've been enlightened. So I'm just going to give you some fun facts. The tree warden program in Vermont was established in 1904, and it went on for 116 years with no changes. And nobody really knows what a tree warden did in 1904 or 1940 or any other time. The Vermont legislation amended it in 2020 and really put some meat into it. And they did so because of invasives, pests. We know what's coming, the emerald ash borer, and just to have management for urban forestry. It's a whole new thing going on out there. I went to a conference a few weeks ago up in Randolph, and the room was filled with arborists, foresters, and tree wardens, my kind of people. And it was really eye-opening, enlightening as to what's going on in Vermont through these programs. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention. Couple things. There's no qualifications for a tree warden. Anybody can put their name in to be appointed. Or you could up it and say we want to have a forester. Athens, Vermont has a forester for their tree warden. Rutland City does. You could have an arborist. You could have a horticulturalist. That's your choice. Non-resident is okay. Doesn't have to be a resident of Ludlow. And you can share a tree warden with another town. Brendan could say, hey, we got this really sharp person over in Cavendish. Maybe we want to bring him into Ludlow and use his or her expertise. You can do that. It's a volunteer position. It could be paid, but that would only be if you probably wanted a non-staff forester like a big city like Rutland or something, not for us. The appointment must be certified with the Commissioner of Forest, Parks, and Recreation. I did that. I put my name in because you appointed me, and I put Bruce's name in because you appointed him. Bruce did mention he wants a badge, by the way, so.
Done.
I'll leave that with you guys. The tree warden serves until a successor is appointed. There's no term limit. Once you appoint them, they're appointed until you unappoint them. So you don't have to do it every year. And what does a tree warden do? I left a little thing. I didn't know if you got it in your packet or not, but I'll get it to you, a little outline of what Vermont says a tree warden's responsibilities are. But basically, they're responsible for making determinations about the care and stewardship of shade trees in public ways and places. Municipal shade trees are in the municipality in downtowns, village centers, municipality-owned land, trees on public property or in public rights-of-way. So there's no authority on private land. A tree warden in any town in Vermont can't go to another private landowner and start dictating tree care or anything unless there's an invasive pest in it that could affect the public good or danger that could affect the public good. You don't have to embrace any of this. This role is totally made up. You guys have the authority over everything. I'm not looking for a job here. You don't have to embrace it at all. The town of Facein, they appointed a tree warden. They just said, the select board just said, we don't want you to do anything. We'll keep business as usual. Other towns have embraced it wholeheartedly. And I say, you might want to say, well, we want a tree warden that's involved in the process. So, what is the process? The first thing that comes to my mind is the emerald ash borer that's coming. I know that we don't have a plan in Ludlow, so that appointed position of tree warden might be involved with developing a plan for the emerald ash borer with you guys. You guys are in control of all this. What's the plan? Some towns are just starting to do plans. Some have already implemented them. Andover is cutting trees. If you go to Andover, you'll see a lot of ash trees down on the side of the road. So is Tenmouth. So is Rutland. Most towns don't have any plans, wait and see, whatever. It's a lot cheaper to cut live trees than it is to cut dead trees. Tenmouth right now, it's costing them about $60,000 per 3 miles to do their trees. And they're estimating there's about 1,000 ash trees in that 3 miles. So that's the stuff we're looking at. What would the plan entail? Cutting trees, emerald ash borer traps, public education, identifying where these trees are. So that's part of the process, to build on that type of thought. Another part of the process that this position could get involved in is grants. There's money out there for tree planting. Right now, there's a grant hanging out there that has $630,000 on it for tree planting in urban areas. The goal of that is to mitigate climate change and to manage stormwater runoff. Well, we would qualify for that. Do we want this? We'd have to write a plan, what kind of trees we want, where do we want to put them, and so on and so forth. They have to be on municipal property. So that's the kind of role that a tree warden could do if you guys wanted to embrace the role. Or you guys can do it, or nobody can do it. I just wanted to throw this out here because I came across this information and I said, holy smokes, there's another whole thing happening out here that I was never aware of. I wasn't when you appointed me, and I don't think you guys are probably too much aware of it either. But we could go after some of these grants. We'd have to determine where do we want some trees. I don't know if we could plant trees at the Timber Inn. I don't know if you can put anything in there once. I mean, I heard you could just put picnic tables, but maybe the old Little League field, maybe Dorsey Park, maybe whatever. So that would be part of the plan if we decided we wanted to go after some of this grant money. We have until the application will open on November 1st and they're due on January 17th coming up. So we have time if you wanted to do it. So anyway, that's it. That's all I want to talk about. There is all kinds of stuff online about what tree warden's supposed to do, what they can and can't do, but they really can't do anything without your buy-in. So I just wanted to throw that at you. That's my update. Yeah, Justin.
Question for you, Mr. Carter. How does tree wardenship work towards, rivers and lakes and up edges of streams? How would that work?
They only have authority on municipal properties.
Who's in control of the waterways? Is that the state?
That'd be the state.
And the town doesn't have any stewardship over it?
Yeah, no.
Okay. Second question is aging trees. There's many giant old trees in town. A lot of them are starting to go the other way. Have you thought about looking at those trees and seeing what kind of new trees might be able to be planted?
Yeah, I would. And but again, I don't want to. You guys are in control of this. I don't want to step on anybody's toes. I'm not here to tell Ron what to do. That's not my trip at all.
So
if you guys say, we want to have an active tree warden, then we need to define that role and say, all right, you guys say this is what we expect from our tree warden. Yeah. Or you could take the Fayston route and say, get lost, go back up on South Hill, Carter, and don't come out. And I will.
We would never
I'll
say
be
that.
gone.
And I have a question for you also. Ralph Pace had a group a few years ago with Ash Borer, and he had a good group that put out traps everywhere. Does that have anything to do with you, or do you know about it? Or the results of it?
I don't know about it. No. I haven't really dove into this stuff wholeheartedly because if I'm going to, this is going to be a project and time consuming, and I want to know that, you guys have my back, that you're in this with me. I have the availability to connect with these people. I've learned a lot of contact information. I'm part of the extension at the University of Vermont, so I have that whole world to access. Yeah. So there's tons and tons of information out there. I'm associated with Cornell University with urban forestry. So those connections are there. I haven't gone after them because I don't want to be pretentious here or anything. Right. This is your call. I just wanted to say that the legislature has changed the role of a tree warden and taken it out of the room with where a Cole is sitting and the fence viewer is sitting. And they said, we want you to do these things. But it's up to each individual town to decide what they want to do with it.
Having gone through that, learned some stuff, what if you were sitting up here, what would you want the tree warden to be doing, or as a tree warden, what are your, if you kind of had open-ended, what would you like to see that look like?
I'm going to copy this and get it to you.
Okay.
And this will tell you.
That'd be great.
This is just a basic outline from the Vermont Urban Forestry that says basically what a tree warden could do for a municipality. And we can just kind of roll with it and see. But
Yeah.
again, I don't want to be driving around town with my badge, like, and looking and then calling somebody and going, hey, unless you say you want that.
We only have one badge, though.
We only have one badge. That's it.
Could we get him a vest?
Yes.
I'm not a forester. I'm not an arborist. I'm not a horticulturalist. But I have experience in this world, kind of on the fringe of the whole thing, through the university. I had a landscaping company, did a lot of tree work back in the day. I've taught pruning courses, tree care management. I'm a certified forest pest detector. I guess this other certification I wrote down, I never really quite know
Well,
where
it
it
sounds like
came from.
you're willing to move forward.
I
You
think
have
he-
your back.
Oh, National Plant Diagnostic Network. I don't even know when I got that.
That's a good one.
That's to identify pests and invasives, that sort of thing.
I think you've outlined a lot of good programs. I mean, as we're all maybe some more aware than others, that like the emerald ash borer is coming, right? I mean, I don't know how many trees are within the purview of the tree warden's effect for the town of Ludlow, but there's many trees in the town outside of that municipal right of way. I mean,
Oh, there's
I don't
tens
see a
of
downside
thousands.
for us as a board to
Tens of
kind of
thousands.
to give the thumbs up here. I mean,
Well, no, I think we need to look at it and discuss it. I mean, you brought a lot of good
Yeah.
points to us that
I
we were
mean,
not aware of.
Do we start budgeting? I mean, start thinking about it? I mean, $60,000 for 3 miles is pretty hefty.
Yeah.
Of course, Tenmouth is a lot different. They don't have 103 going through the middle of town either.
Right.
But we got to start thinking about
Yep.
this.
we also do, as we did, I don't know the rules behind, all the rules behind the timber inn, but we do have a lot of property that is open, particularly as you enter into town.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I would be open to hear any and all programs.
Absolutely. Me too.
Go. You got a question?
Yep.
Yep.
I'd like to speak
Oh.
in favor of this.
Okay.
I'm Melissa Rockhill. So I just saw Marie Caduto from the state from A&R Friday night.
Yeah.
She told everyone in the meeting we were in on flood resilience that she was working with Ludlow on floodplain restoration. Floodplain restoration involves planting trees. The Black River Action Team is also Kelly Stetner, as well as with her role with ONRCD, is interested in helping the town with all of this as well. The Vermont River Conservancy would also like to come in and talk to the town about it, and Kelly would actually like to organize one meeting to come and present their ideas to the select board or whoever the appropriate parties would be, along with Bill. Now that I know you're considering a tree warden, I was trying to figure out who the correct body within the town would be to work through to help facilitate all of this, because as Phil has stated, there are many, many grants out there to help the town with all of this. One of the ideas with the Timber Inn property, but they would look at the bigger picture of how everything would be all planned out for whatever else would go through the buyout process, was to plant like I'll just call it a tree farm, where future plantings could be taken from there for stream bank stabilizations or other projects that we would need to do without having the expense of buying more trees and shrubs to do those things. So I'm very much in favor of this, and I just wanted to weigh in, as well as any guidance in how you might like those organizations to move forward with the town in helping with these types of projects.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes.
Great information.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So these grants will cover not just buying the trees, they'll cover the excavation, the transport of the trees, labor to plant them, so it's not on the town crew. And that's just one grant that I came across. But anyway, I just wanted to throw this at you and let you think
I think
about
it behooves us, and sorry to interject, Mr. Carter, I think it behooves us to explore this. When I moved into Homestyle Hostel in 2014, there was a giant maple tree out front that was about 200 years old, and it perished in our first thunderstorm that we ever had at that place. And it's just been sitting vacant ever since. So it'd be nice to see more trees, especially in the downtown village here. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, again, it'd be right in the plan, where do we want to plant trees? The grants, the money's issued per project, so you can't say, oh, we want 100 trees, we're gonna plant 2 at Dorsey, we're gonna plant some on Main Street, 1 in the Preservation District. Wouldn't work that way. We'd have to identify a project and say, okay, we wanna plant trees at the old Ludlow Little League field. We wanna forest that or get it, reclaim it, and that'll help with stormwater mitigation and flood control, and it would. It certainly would. I think would be a great candidate if that was the part of the plan. Or you guys might say, well, no, we want to line the preservation district with maples. That's a different project. So those would be 2 different projects going after the
What
same
would you
pool of
need
money.
to craft a plan, resource-wise? A committee?
Probably, yeah, I don't want to do it by myself in my cellar at my desk, you know.
You sure?
And then you guys would, maybe an ad hoc committee of some sort, and then you guys would have to approve the plan, and then we get it in by November 1st.
Mr. McNamara, is there a way that we can advertise a potential, a committee to
Sure. Yeah, I think
join
that
Phil?
it probably would be a good idea if Phil and I sat down and talked just about what we can look at, and then get whether that's a committee or a group. We're going to say, all right, this is kind of what we're steering towards, because I know we've talked about a few projects in town that, obviously, from my standpoint,
Bless you.
Sorry.
The projects and everything is a great idea. From the town manager standpoint, I also like the tree warden because, not to put all the blame on Phil, but if you cut down the wrong tree in town, you can have some problems. Like, we did it in Cavendish, so I'm like, well, the guy with the badge said to do it. So, that's what, and that's just a small piece of it, but working, we have some trees in town that we need to look at, and obviously Ron and I will look at it, and Phil's talked about his background. Ron and I may look at it and go, oh, it looks dead. Yeah, that's got to come down. But there might be some more reasoning behind it, and then not only taking a tree, but what do you put in its place? So I think us working together, that will be something that we can probably have, and I can maybe present at the next meeting.
Let me know.
Okay, thank you, Phil.
Thank you very much, Phil.
Thank you.
Merger and Option Tax Committee and appointments.
So we've had a few after the meeting on the 17th, have been able to gather some participants for the committees for the merger committee and the option tax committee. I would request the board make these appointments tonight. I'll read off, I'll start with the merger, and this is the smallest of the 2. So if we're still looking for members, but at this point, it would be myself, Brendan McNamara, Brett Sanderson, Justin Hijack. So I need a motion
Move
to-
forward with those 3?
Huh?
You want a motion to move
Please.
forward? Then I give you the motion.
Second.
This is for the merger.
Merger
Okay.
committee.
Was
Okay.
that Rex Anderson? The name?
Me.
No,
Brett
Brett
Sanderson.
Oh, Rex Anderson.
We can call him Rex. I don't care.
It's that Mike, it's dead.
Well, I mean, I kind of like Rex.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Nicole, what are you up to?
I was trying to live close.
No, you can, obviously say no. I would love your expertise. So if you want to lend any sort of opinions in a non-committee
Logan Nicole.
capacity. Are you? I don't want to,
We rescind that.
So I'll rescind that, and I will ask for,
Rescind it and
I'll rescind my previous motion, and I will ask for the appointment of Justin Hijack, Brett Sanderson, Brendan McNamara, and Logan Nicole.
I make a motion, we move with those 4.
Okay,
Second.
second, open for discussion. Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Guys opposed? Ayes have it.
Local Option Tax Committee, I would request the appointment of the following: Ryan Silvestri, Noah Schmidt, Julie Nicole, George Tucker, Gene Strong, Brendan McNamara.
Could I ask a question, please? Is that George Tucker or George Tucker Jr. or George Tucker
Yeah.
Jr.? And who's the one?
I would make a motion, we move forward with those 5 names.
Second.
Okay, open for discussion. Being no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Guys opposed? Ayes have it. Moving on, resilience initiative for Vermont empowerment and recovery.
That's Chris. Yeah, if you go to the podium, that'd be great. Just for people.
For those who don't know me, my name is Chris Urich. I'm a senior planner for the Mount Escutney Regional Commission. This is,
I'm Megan Arpino. I'm a hydrologist with Stone Environmental.
so we just wanted to touch base with you folks really quick about the Resilience Initiative for Vermont Empowerment and Recovery that we're calling the River Project. And I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but there's about $90 million available in federal money through the Federal Emergency Management Agency through the what's called the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. The state of Vermont just passed a line item in its budget of about $12.5 million to cover the 25% required local match. So essentially this HMGP money through FEMA is free to towns. So the River Initiative, as we call it, we're really just trying to help you folks to take advantage of that. So we would help with public outreach, we would help with grant writing, we have Stone Environmental on retainer, they'd help with engineering, they'd help with the benefit cost analysis, which is a prerequisite to HMGP funding. So that's really what we're trying to do.
I have a question for you. You said HMGP?
Yes.
That's the acronym. Now, is that available for any town in Vermont or only towns that have adopted the FEMA flood policies?
It's available for all towns, and you do have National Flood Insurance Program compliant flood hazard regulations and all the other stuff you'd need. So you're perfectly eligible. And I should mention the types of projects that we're looking for. Really anything that mitigates flooding. So we're looking at floodplain restoration, floodplain reconnection, bridge culvert upsizing, elevating structures above the base flood elevation or flood proofing above the base flood elevation, similar to what Shaw's just did. What am I forgetting here?
Dam removals.
Dam removals.
All of that.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a whole list of eligible types of projects. The main goal needs to be mitigating a flood hazard, and then a key component of being eligible for the funding is satisfying the benefit cost analysis requirements, so showing that it would be a cost-effective project.
So what kind of, so you're saying that analysis is kind of your ticket through the door. What's that, what cost is that to the town?
Nothing.
$0 to pursue
It's all
this.
covered. Yep.
Okay.
Do you have any ideas of projects that would be beneficial to Ludlow to pursue?
We're kind of just delving into that, and that's part of what we want from the select board, from the trustees, from members of the public, is to get project ideas, things that have come up. Commonwealth Avenue drainage has come up. A dog park. There's a dog park in a floodplain. Does that ring a bell?
Not for much
There
longer.
was.
Not anymore.
I've heard so much about that.
Now, does
But-
this pertain to residences,
It can.
businesses,
Yep.
municipalities?
Yep.
All encompassing?
Yep.
Because there's a lot of businesses in town that are still not opened, still suffering.
Yep.
Still trying to navigate from a year ago.
Yeah, so that would be a big thing, helping residents, businesses, government buildings to come into compliance with your flood regs. So elevating the building, flood proofing in the case of non-residential.
So are you looking for us to either say, yeah, we're in, or no, we're not in?
I don't know that we need a formal motion. We just wanted to make you guys aware of it. A, kind of reaffirm your commitment to participate, which really doesn't mean anything. You, of course, don't need to submit an application through HMGP. Again, it's free money.
This
I
is
don't-
something we should definitely.
That's the only reason I asked being that the study is kind of the prerequisite. I definitely think this is something we should definitely pursue. I think we all, after last year's event, that we understand we are in a pretty critical situation. And as Justin said, there are many people who are still affected to this day.
Yep.
Do you need a formal motion for? Okay.
No,
I
we'll just
think that-
continue working.
Yeah, I think
It's clear that we're on board.
Yeah.
Is there a resource that we can direct people to? Is there a liaison, a community liaison? Do they
That would
contact you
be
directly?
Me and Megan on the technical end of things.
Well, thank you guys for taking time on this Monday to come in.
No problem. And I'll
Shed
just
light
throw
on this.
out there that we are hoping, now that we've reaffirmed your commitment, to hold a public forum at some point in July to solicit public ideas. Oh, we think we should upsize that bridge or reconnect that floodplain or whatever it is.
I have a perfect bridge for you over by the Chamber of Commerce. You should look at.
Couple of them.
Yeah.
Thank you guys
Thank
very
you very
much.
much. Can you just let us know when that forum will be, please?
Yes, of course.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks for coming. Process for town clerk appointment change for elected position.
So I just want to say the fact that this is on the agenda and that ULA's here, there's no correlation. ULA's not going anywhere. So she's not allowed to.
We're gonna lock the doors.
Yes,
anyway.
exactly. So that's fine. But this is something that we had discussed and really brought it up because this is something that will probably need to go before the voters in March. But some towns are really looking at, obviously, our town clerk treasurer is an elected position. And I kind of alluded to it earlier, and I'll reiterate it because it's worth reiterating. What ULA does in that office is nothing short of a miracle. In balancing things, and that can't be done. The fact that this town has been fortunate enough to have ULA Cook in that position for that long is, that's not going to happen all the time. So, the way the towns function, the amount of funds, accounts, records that are handled in that office, it would behoove the town to look at trying to exercise more control over that position and being able to appoint and hire someone that when that time comes, that ULA says, well, and that's going to be 20, 25 years from now, when ULA says, I'm going to retire, we have options and have some control over that. Towns in the area are doing that, and it's not a shot at the electoral process of the state of Vermont or anything, but you can't just have anyone in that position. It should be a hired, appointed position, just that it's the right fit for the town.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Synopsis.
Can I just say something? I think you really need somebody too that would have accounting experience.
Are there any prerequisites for running for town clerk or treasurer?
No.
Any Tom, Dick, or Harry could do it?
And that's, again, you could be fortunate and find another ULA cook that does the job. Probably not.
How many years have you been running, Ula, if you don't mind me asking? You've had to run every year? Or is 3-year term?
The first time we got, but then it got changed to 3-year term. So right now they're staggered.
Okay.
But I've been here since 1996.
It's a good year. Thank you.
Thank you.
87 was when I was born.
I just wanted to get that out, that fact that this is talked about. We will need to vote to put it on the ballot once the time comes.
Okay.
So I don't want to have that conversation in January or to be like, oh yeah, now we should do it.
Well, don't forget it.
This needs to be done. Don't forget it. I'm trying not to. It's actually asking a lot, Rex.
Okay. Okay, moving on, municipal manager update.
Just a few things. So, we started the new fiscal year, July 1. I just wanted to recognize Marissa Foote is here in the back. Marissa is one of our not new, but new full-time officers. Just a couple weeks ago, a month ago, completed her stint with the Vermont Police Academy, which is a tremendous accomplishment. I was able to attend the graduation and kind of a synopsis of what Marissa went through, which is nothing that I'd want to go through, but it's a tremendous credit to her. So we're happy to have her on board now as a full-time officer. So thank you. Welcome. Also here in attendance, much like I did his first day on the job, I got to attend a select board meeting. Our new fire chief as of July 1, Ben Whalen, is here, so we welcome Ben. Ben has been here for... Ben has been working with Chief Kalinda for the last 2 weeks, working through that transition. But as of today, and Ben even stopped for an accident in Proctorsville this morning. I told him he better get to work because he was going to be late, but that was all right. So we're excited to have Ben here. So both of you guys, welcome aboard. Happy to have you both.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a couple of updates. Timber Inn, it's been on the forefront of everybody's thoughts, and especially mine when I drive by it. Asbestos removal and demo is set for the 16th of July. They're going to come in again. Those are just 2 bathrooms, tiles that they have to come in, remediate the asbestos. If it was a private home, they probably just rip it up, but it's a federal project, so they have to come in, take it out, then that will go down. So scheduled for the 16th. Also, all of the debris that you have seen at the Little League field, that will be, you'll see Crown Point on location, I think this week, to chip that and then truck it off site. So that will be a process. And finally, we've worked with FEMA to categorize all that debris and have it moved off site. So that'll be another step in getting that area cleaned up. It's kind of unsightly. Fireworks for the town taking place on Okemo on the 5th, Friday. So it's usually, last year was a fun event. Food trucks, band, located right up at the base area. So last year was a phenomenal time. Sunday, we have this past Sunday, Gypsy Reel kicked off the concert series at Veterans Park. Those concerts start at 6:30 on Sundays. Go check them out. Another thing, Legion Baseball is back in Ludlow. They're playing home games at Pullen Field. Most games are at 5:30, some are at 7. Recommend going and checking that out. It's a pretty fun community event. They've had a number of games. I've heard the umpiring is phenomenal at these games, so I'm going to go check it out.
Heard rumor opposite.
And one thing we touched on briefly was, yes, we have secured through the Vermont Community Foundation, we were awarded a grant for the dog park in the amount of $37,000 and for the Little League field in the amount of $20,000, I believe. Little League field, as we talked about, relocating and moving some of that play up to the high school field. That will begin after the Legion season's over. The dog park construction, that will begin probably by the end of this month and be located at West Hill. So the funding for the dog park, and there was a tremendous amount of fundraising that was done right off the bat. So that the funds that were fundraised through those efforts, as well as what we secured through the Vermont Community Foundation, will allow us to relocate that park to West Hill. I believe at this point, we're looking at having 2 separate structures, a larger structure and a smaller area for the smaller dogs, which will utilize that and be a step in starting to kind of revitalize West Hill a little bit.
Who's the contractor that's performing that
Springfield
work?
Fence.
Okay. When did that go out to bid?
2 weeks ago.
Okay.
3 weeks ago, there was 3 bids for it. So that is it. That's all I got.
Other business. Anybody got other business?
Not for me.
Eric?
Thank you, Eric Alden, Josite Road. I just wanted to give a comment. You guys sort of went on to the next subject when it comes to the new rules of procedures. This won't surprise you, but I read through all of them and they seem reasonable and something that could be used for the town. I'd ask, effective today, the state has amended the open meeting law. It starts today. So you may want to get that little cheat sheet and add that to your review of those new rules that you're thinking about implementing. And the second piece, just self-serving. I know a great historic building in the center of town that could use some help from those river folks. So if you guys have some decision on that, there's a nice building across the street that could use all of those funds. Thank you.
Mr. Alden, does that open meeting law pertain to, what is it, recusals, correct?
It's
Few other
most
things.
most of the basis of it is for recordings of the open meeting law and for publications, notices.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, with the new policies, you wouldn't have to say Trailside Road. That'd be weird, wouldn't it?
It says you can.
You can. It's optional.
It's optional. I still think it's a good thing.
So, any other business? Nope.
Hi, Melissa Rockhill again. This time, Black River Valley Resources, the area's long-term recovery group. We are working with Dartmouth's Center for Energy Justice this summer. We also worked with them in the spring, and in the spring we were evaluating culverts and ditches in the town of Cavendish. They did start doing some more culverts and ditches in Cavendish today. Not only do they assess them, but they also do some cleaning where it's absolutely necessary. We would like to expand that project into into Ludlow, if you folks would be willing to participate. We're also linking up with Mark. Logan and I just got connected today because we assessed what the students did last semester against the Mark Culvert database. We would do the same thing in Ludlow. Obviously, we wouldn't be able to do everything, but some small sampling of any area you would direct the students to take a look at.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's totally great.
Yeah, I'd defer a little bit to Ron first.
Yeah.
I know that I talk with Rick Chambers and Cavendish all the time. I know what they were doing. I think the answer will probably be yes, and we can talk. I want to talk to Ron first, and he'll probably direct us where to go.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Logan?
So from the Mark perspective, and VT Culverts is a great website. This A&R runs it. It has a lot of data on, like the current stock of culverts and condition. A lot of the inventory data is incredibly out of date because we just don't have the capacity to go around and re-inventory all the time. So a lot of the current inventory on VT Culverts is like 2014, so at least 10 years old, which they likely have changed since then. And so, I've been really supportive of this effort, and I'm hoping to use their information about the VT Culverts as appropriate. We can find a way to make the data be.
All right.
Thank you.
Possible items for next meeting?
Class 4 roads.
Class 4 roads.
I think we should go over the rules of procedure for next meeting.
Tree warden stuff,
Tree warden stuff,
Yeah,
because that grant's coming up, if we want to,
we should get that committee.
however we
whatever.
want to handle it,
Yeah.
we should get that
Those
rolling.
are the three big ones.
Do you want to, how do you want to communicate with the merger committee and the local options tax committee?
So once I'd like to get maybe one more person. No, actually, so that's good.
We
Is
have
there
4 on the
anyone
merger.
from Ludlow Electric has their thing, but like from wastewater or from admin that would be beneficial to be on that merger?
I could talk to, maybe one of the water commissioners, with some knowledge, or, I think I could be a liaison for the wastewater department. It's not necessarily, I think a lot of the questions are going to pertain to billing. Not necessarily, the functions and operations of the system aren't going to change. It's going to be more of so I think if the committees had specific questions, we could go find those. It's probably the best way.
And I spoke with Ludlow Electric on Monday or Tuesday, I forget. I went in there, and I just want to chat with them about what it would look like. And they said, obviously, if the town decides to go forward with a charter, that would be brought up to the Public Utility Commission, the PUC, and they would make a final ruling. If the town and village were to merge, that would potentially open up a lot of Ludlow residents to Ludlow Electric Power service.
Is
which
it
would be
limited?
a
Because
good
like
thing.
Cavendish people have Ludlow Electric.
I don't know. Proctorsville? You would know.
Wasn't it set up by
it's all-
tariff originally?
It's all contracted, so GMP has certain
Got it.
boundaries
Yeah.
contracted and Ludlow Electric does. But I think the merger would pose a greater
Would
opportunity
could
for
open
Ludlow
up
Electric.
that boundary a little bit. Okay.
Is that true?
I'm
I mean,
not sure.
I question the part that GM
It would be
would give up anything.
It would be a
for Ludlow.
battle. It would be a battle.
It would be a battle.
Yeah.
And that's, so GMP wouldn't want to give it up per se, but that's where the PUC comes in, the Public Utility Commission, to draw up those boundaries. And that kind of legalese.
Right. Okay, sign warrant orders. Guess they must have been all set, they didn't come up.
Good.
Possible executive session,
Just briefly.
personnel contracts, legal issues.
Yes.
Personnel.
Okay,
I make a motion that we enter executive session for personnel.
Second.
okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Guys opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.